Welcome everyone to another CTC Software webinar. My name is Sean Zervis. I'm the Director of BIM Development here at CTC Software, and in today's session, we're going to be focusing again on the Nexus CMS User Learning Series with a topic discussion focusing on working with design app-specific filters. As always, of course, these webinars are recorded, so you can always go back and watch them for reference later on when you need to. In case you need a refresher on exactly how this works, or share it with your team members. Also, for those of you watching it online, we hope that this is valuable for you, and that maybe this earns a like and subscribe on the YouTube channel when you're viewing it there. But without further ado, let's jump right into the topic of the day. So, Nexus, the CMS itself specifically, has some really powerful filtration. And a lot of these are related directly to a specific app. Now, for most of us watching this here and talking about this, we're probably focusing on either Revit or AutoCAD, or potentially both. And each of those have a very special section within the filters panel. We've used these in previous webinars a little bit, but this one here, we're going to talk in detail today about what each filter does, how you can use it, how you can combine these things together to really filter down and find exactly the content that you need. Now, I didn't mention this a moment ago, but of course, as always, we also watch the questions window. So if you have questions about today's topic, we encourage you to throw them in there. And we also save a QA session for the end that's not typically a part of the recording, where we answer anything that doesn't fit well in line with the presentation. Let's talk about some of the objectives that we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about getting access to the application-specific filters. We're going to take a look at what they are. We're going to use them to refine some general search results, and we're also going to take a look at limiting results to an explicit design app so that you really get the best of everything that you want. You can combine and mix and match these things as you see fit. So first off, how do we access the app filtration? Well, within the Nexus CMS here, I have a search that I've already run. It's just a general search of everything. And in my case, it gives me about 177,000 discrete elements in this list. That's too much to scroll through page to page to page. I mean, this isn't Instagram, this isn't Facebook. We're not going to doom scroll to try to find a piece of content. We're going to filter this down a little bit. Now, one way of filtering, of course, is just putting in a search string, and that's a very effective way of filtering. But another way of filtering is by leveraging the intended filters panel. It's purposefully built for this effort. And we've talked about this before, but just as a review, here in the top right corner is the filters button. Right now there are zero filters applied. If you click the filters button, it will expand out and show you the filters panel, but that's a temporary panel because if you click away, it goes away. And I find that a little frustrating. I like to see my filters all the time. And so what I recommend that you do is hit here at the top of the filters panel, the little push pin. And that'll anchor it permanently on this right-hand side of the CMS. And it kind of shrinks down your results window over here to facilitate having this filters panel always out there. Now, when you first take a look at this filters panel, if this is the very first time you're ever opening it up and trying to use it, you'll probably see these three subsections collapsed. And since the focus here is to talk about accessing the app filtration, the app-specific filtration. Over here, if you're using Revit, you probably want the Revit filters open. If you're focusing more on AutoCAD or AutoCAD Civil 3D, you probably want the AutoCAD filters open. You can have them both open if you really want to, and you can see everything. But in a moment here, you'll see why maybe that doesn't necessarily make sense, because usually I won't be looking for Revit and AutoCAD content. It's usually Revit or AutoCAD content and discretely filtering to those. So this is how we can get access to that. You can collapse and expand these different sections here that are underneath the primary filter area. In previous sessions, we've already talked about leveraging things like libraries and tags, modifying some of the sorting features here. And these are things that you should definitely take a look at. Those are really powerful filters. But even within that, if I need to get discretely AutoCAD content, then I can leverage the AutoCAD filter section. That's the whole purpose of this. So let's migrate on and talk about some of the application-specific filtration abilities. So Revit and AutoCAD have two different kind of major controls for this. So we're going to focus on the AutoCAD here first. It's the shorter of the two. There's two controls. One is to display only AutoCAD content. This is anything that's a direct AutoCAD file type. And the second thing is looking at the AutoCAD categories, all the different categories that could appear in this list. Now, if you've processed your own AutoCAD content in, especially if it's AutoCAD Civil 3D content, your list might be about the same as mine, just about as long. If you only have a little bit of AutoCAD content in there, the nice thing about these category lists is they only list the categories to which you can find content, or for which you can find content. So if you only got blocks, then you're only going to see a CAD block as a filtration type. If you have blocks and drawings and macros and a template or two, then you might have those four. And if you've got a bunch of other stuff from Civil 3D, well, then you're going to have all of those styles here in the list. And this can get to be quite a long list. So if you were looking for something like, I don't know, parcel, I can start to type in a couple of things here at the top of the AutoCAD categories list so that I'm not scrolling so far. Again, we're trying to avoid the doom scroll of scrolling forever when there's a lot of potential results. And so within this categories list, sometimes you might want to filter down to just parcel, and then you can find those specific styles, and you could apply that to your results. And then it would find me more or less AutoCAD parcels. But because I'm filtering for a lot of other things, I'm filtering for everything, I'm going to find more than just parcels. And we'll see about how to filter that down in a moment here. But let's take a look also then, for those of you in the Revit space, at Revit filters. So on the Revit side, there's a few more things. Revit has a bit more fidelity in its filtration here. And so starting at the top, there's the only Revit content. There's display incompatible versions. So those of you who are using Revit, you probably understand that Revit itself is very, very version specific. You can't take a 2025 piece of content and load it into Revit 2023. There's no save down. There's no backwards compatibility in the Revit space. Not near as much as there is in the AutoCAD space. So this here will allow you to see content that could have shown up in your results set, but that applies only to future versions. And you go, Sean, why in the world would I want something like that? Well, sometimes you might be searching, say, for Herman Miller chairs. And you're like, okay, well, I know I have them in my library. How come they're not showing up? Well, if you're in Revit, say, 23, and those Herman Miller chairs were built in Revit 24, they are in your library. They're just by default not showing up. And so you can display that future content to go, oh, okay, yes, it's here. The content is available, but not to me in the current version that I'm in. If I'm back in Revit 2021 using old stuff, there's future things that probably the BIM management team has put together. And you know, you just can't make use of it in the older version of Revit. That's just the way that it is. But you might want to see that, yes, in fact, there were results. This is why I can't find it. And maybe now, we talked about this in a previous session, you go add a request to your BIM management team and say, hey guys, I asked for such and such, and you gave it to me in Revit 24, but I need it in, you know, Revit 21 or Revit 22 or something. And that way they can, you know, take steps to get that for you. But the whole purpose of this is to go, you know, I'm searching for something, I'm getting no results, I'm not getting what I want, and I want extra stuff. You can display things that may not be compatible with your current version of Revit. Okay, moving on. Revit categories here. For every category that's loaded in, these are the same categories you would see over in the project browser in Revit. All those categories, you can filter for elements that relate to discretely those categories. Down below that, display units. Many of us work in both imperial and metric, and a lot of the content that we work with is discretely built around those units of measure. Especially, you know, in Canada, we have a lot of our Canadian customers who work with both units regularly. You might want to filter for that. If you're working with a company who is international, you might need to be using specific content unit of measure. This can help you filter for that. The CMS, as content is processed in, it understands what those units are, and it allows you to filter for them. You can filter by a host, completely unhosted, ceiling face, not hosted, or unavailable, wall hosting. There's all kinds of different hosting types. And again, this list populates based on what you have available within your CMS space. And then finally, versions. The versions that you have processed into, or your BIM management has processed into the CMS, is all filterable. In my case, I have content as old as Revit 2017 and as new as Revit 2025. And so all of this content I can filter down to specific version years while I'm running filters. So we've talked about a bunch of these. Now let's actually take and make use of these app filters, these application-specific filters, and see why they might make sense for you. You saw me run already one of these when I was in here, and I had filtered for AutoCAD content, parcel styles in this case. But you see, I still got 644 items, and 100 of them are loading at a time. That means I have to scroll through 6 to 7 pages worth of stuff, and eventually I might find something. But since this is organized by name, and since a lot of these things are numbered documents, they're showing up first since I was searching for basically everything. So when I'm searching for parcel styles, it doesn't mean only show me parcel styles. It means if AutoCAD content shows in the result, filter it down so that from the AutoCAD content, only show parcel styles. If you truly only want to see only AutoCAD content, there's this checkbox right here, only AutoCAD content. And then if I apply that, now I am only getting AutoCAD content, and from that content, from everything that's available to me out of 177,000 pieces of content, the 18 items that are parcel styles and only AutoCAD content will show up. So now I've really filtered this down, and now I'm not doom scrolling for pages upon pages upon pages. It's just the 18 in this case. That makes sense. And so this immediately ties us into the last bullet point, which is limiting results to the app that you're specifically trying to target and focus on. So there's plenty of times when I want to limit those results down to just AutoCAD. Or if I clear this out and I go back to the, all the objects, in my case, the clear actually shows me just my personal libraries here. So 11,000 components in my personal libraries. If I wanted to now filter this down for Revit stuff, you can use, of course, the library filters, the tag filters. Those are good. But here in the Revit space, if I'm looking for, I don't know, walls, and you see I'm using the filtration so I don't have to scroll forever. I want to find basic walls. I can hit apply. And what this is going to do is find me everything plus basic walls. So 162 objects here. If I only want the walls, only Revit content, which is something that I almost always check, and now I'm getting just those components, and it's very effective. Let me show another example where this only Revit content can come into play sometimes. I'm going to show one where I know that I have incompatible content here. I'm going to run a search for, that was the wrong one. I'm going to use my search for my starter project. Here are some discrete Revit project models. This is using an app sort of filter here, but it's not one of the typical Revit category filters you'll notice. And I'm not using only Revit content, even though I am only seeing Revit content. That's because this is filtering down by tags, and just these Revit components are associated to those tags. So it has to be associated there. But if I expand out my advanced filters, actually, I'm not even using that. I was going to say I thought maybe I was using an RVT file extension filter for other design apps, but I wasn't even using that. It was very simplistic. I just used the tags for this. But the reason why I wanted to pull this up is to show the other Revit filter here and the checkboxes is display incompatible versions so that you can see what that looks like. There are future components, but because I'm in Revit 2023 right now, actively I have that design app open, and that's the one that I was using. It'll show me all of the earlier templates that I could use. And now because I've checked this display incompatible versions, it's going to show me the 24 and 25 templates that technically exist, but I can't actively use right now. So that's a special Revit filter there because, again, the versionality, the version control of Revit is so specific, I can't use future stuff. You saw me using inside of here a filter here for walls, basic walls. You can do the same thing for other stuff. You can do, if I could spell, doors. So I want doors. Maybe I also want door tags, and maybe I also want walls, right? You can do these kinds of filters where you're combining multiple together. I'm actually filtering for 3 different categories of objects, but I can't be in the MEP pack at this point because it won't show me anything. Let's try this again. and only Revit content, so I'm not getting all the Word docs. There we go. There we go, 498 total doors across everything that I could use. Actually, not just doors, door tags, and walls. So now I'm finding all of the stuff. There's some walls, here's some doors. Someplace in here is probably a door tag or two. There's a door tag right there, the out-of-the-box English universal door tag right there. There's all kinds of content that's available. All of this I could load into my active project, but this is coming up because of the filters that I'm leveraging. I may also want to filter that down a little more. A lot of this content that's in this list is probably international content. And so if I said only give me Imperial, then that particular filter there, if I hit apply again, now I guess it's just Imperial stuff. I may have already filtered for that. I could say only give me stuff that's wall-based, or only give me stuff that's completely unhosted, right? You can use those types of filters. And maybe I say I want stuff that specifically and only relates to 2023. Yeah, that filtered that down quite a bit because I've got some old content in here, or potentially future content, I guess, but old content. And so now I've only got 113 results for things that directly have a file available in Revit 2023. So Revit, you can see, has a lot more filters in Fidelity because the data there is a lot more data rich. AutoCAD still, though, has filters available to it, which is the AutoCAD category and specifically filtering for just AutoCAD itself, just, excluding everything that's not AutoCAD content. Now, one final thing that I do want to point out here, I'm going to clear these filters away so there's nothing applying to anything in this filters panel here. And I want to show you something that happens when you use the only such and such product. Notice how I have right now Revit and AutoCAD collapsed. But I'm going to expand them both out so we can see that they're both fully available here. When you check only that app's content, it completely disables the filters for the other app. Because again, when you only want that, that's all you're going to get. You can't have only AutoCAD and only Revit. It's not an and, it's a truly an only. So if I said only give me AutoCAD, then the Revit filters themselves don't even show. It doesn't matter if they're expanded or not. They don't show at all. That's by design so that you can isolate and focus on just this so that those filters can't take effect. It is only affecting your AutoCAD content at this point. So if I was to apply that, 2300 AutoCAD specific things, and then from that, maybe I want to start searching within there. Give me a hydrant or something, I don't know. Yeah, look at that. There's a whole bunch of items inside of here that somehow relate to hydrant, and I can find that, and it's only the AutoCAD content that's going to show up. I'm not even really filtering for the category stuff here. It's not blocks or point styles or anything like that. It's just AutoCAD content, all AutoCAD content, and then from there filtering down. You can do the same thing, by the way, y'all, with Revit. Only Revit content, show me a hydrant. I don't even know if I have anything. I probably do. Yeah, there's a bunch of things that somehow match up with the search term of hydrant that has different properties that match HYD. That's probably hydronic, hydrant. Yeah, there we go. That's a bit better. The HYD was a bit too open and a bit too generic for it. So this way, hopefully you all can really leverage these filters to powerfully narrow down on stuff. Again, at the very beginning of this, you saw 177,000 discrete pieces of content, 100 loading at a time. That's unsustainable for actual browsing. So if you use these filters and you combine that with your search string, especially these design app specific filters, you can really narrow down and find exactly what you're looking for way faster. All right, with that, for those of you who aren't going to hang out for the QA session, those of you watching this on YouTube, I want to give you a final thank you. We hope that you found this very valuable. We hope that you come back for more in the future. Again, if you like and subscribe, that just helps you get access to these videos when they come live.